So in the previous video we have studied regarding the characteristics of bryophytes, and apart from that the types of plants it is going to be found in the bryophyte, liverworts and the mosses that we have studied. So in a brief I will tell you that if suppose they ask the characteristic feature of bryophytes, then what you are able to write. First you have to write the habitat, that is these are the amphibians of the plant kingdom, and sexual reproduction takes place by means of the water. The second part is root like structures are present called as rhizoids. These are non-vascular, right? And the plant body is called as an thallus, where the plant body is not differentiated into root, stem and leaf. And reproduction is generally taking place by the two life cycles, that is called as alternation of generation. One life cycle is gametophytic stage, another one is the sporophytic phase. In this means bryophytic stage, gametophytic stage is dominant, and gametes are of two types, that is antheridium and archegonium. Antheridium is the male gamete, archegonium is the female gamete. Now the next part is, these are whenever fusion of male and female gamete is to be taking place, then the sporophytic plant is produced, which is normally the plant is normally germinated or produced, but it is short lived. So main plant body is haploid gametophytic plant. So sporophytic plant is short lived, and automatically it is dependent on the gametophytic plant. Why? Because in the previous video I told you that in this normally the sexual reproduction require water. The plant body also present in the water, so that the conditions are favorable for the growth. That is why you can observe that the dominant phase will be the gametophytic phase. Next is liverworts and mosses. When we are observing the differences, here differences are not required. In the case of liverworts, like that we have to start. In the case of liverworts, now the vegetative reproduction is taking place by means of the breakdown of the thallus, that you already know that is considered as a fragmentation. Then you can observe that special buds are going to be formed on the thallus region, considering it as gamma cups. So these gamma cups will retain on the main thallus. When it attains maturity, they are normally detached from the main parent and develop into as independent one, like that. And similarly here in the case of liverworts, the sporophytic plant is normally dependent on the gametophytic plant. In the case of mosses differences you can observe that, like that we have tried the general characters. In the case of mosses, the sporophytic plant is partially dependent on the gametophytic plant. So like that you have to complete the characters. So in this way nearly 7 to 8 characters you have to write it, liverworts, mosses, like this, so that it is to be important in the examination for 5 marks, that bryophytes general characters. Now we are moving toward the next part, that is the pterodophytes. Today we are moving toward the next one, that is in the plant kingdom, pterodophytes, which is considered as an higher plants as compared to the bryophytes. Algae mattu bryophyte compare madidre next generation, that is the pterodophytes. So now here we have to see that pteris means fern, and pteris means fern, phyta andre phyton, that is the plant. So usually we are considering it as fern plant, fern plants. So in this way fern plant anta karitu, or even so many plants are there, but majority of the plants which are looking like the fern. Why it is called as fern? Why it is called as fern? Andre, the leaves are normally found or developed like a bird's feather, like that. That is what we are saying it as an fern plant anta karitu. So in this way these are normally considered as an pterodophytic plant, little bit higher plants as compared to the bryophyte. In the bryophyte what we have studied as compared with the bryophyte, now we are moving toward the pterodophytic characters. Number 1, these are growing in moist surfaces. So now moist surfaces or shady places right? Usually shady places, not in the water, ನೀರಿನಾಗ ಬೆಳೆಯೋದಿಲ್ಲ, so they are found on the moist surfaces or the shady places, or even we are observing that the cool climatic conditions, so or cold climatic conditions, cold climatic conditions. So this is what the habitat character. The second one is what we have written in the case of bryophyte. We have to observe that. Alli nodive now, the plant body is called as a thallus. So here we are observing that plant body is called prothallus. Plant body is called prothallus. Why it is considered as a prothallus? Because where plant body is differentiated into root, stem and leaf, is called as prothallus, and it is differentiated into root, stem and leaf. Alli there in the case of bryophytes we have studied that it is not differentiated into root, stem and leaf. Next, third character, these are vascular. Vascular means presence of xylem and phloem. Vascular is nothing but presence of xylem and phloem. Presence of xylem and phloem. So that is why it is considered as an presence of xylem and phloem. These are vascular. Next, fourth character. So hence these are also called as tracheophytes. Pterodophytes are also called as tracheophytes. So like this you can observe that these are growing on moist surfaces or shady places or cold climatic conditions, and plant body is called as a prothallus, where plant body is differentiated into root, stem and leaf. These are vascular, presence of xylem and phloem. Hence these are also called as tracheophytes. Now we will stop here itself, then we will discuss about some features of these things. So plant body is called as a thallus or prothallus, where it is differentiated into root, stem and leaf. As already you know that in the previous video bryophytes we have studied, and I have not discussed about the root, stem and leaf differentiation. First time in the plant kingdom where we are observing that the terrestrial plants first time we can observe that the terrestrial plants and root, stem and leaves are differentiated. Just you have to observe here. Now we are moving toward that. ಈಗ root, stem and leaves are differentiated. ಮೊದಲನೇ ಸಲ plant kingdom ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದಾಗ now next what it is to be there, gymnosperms are there. ಅದಾದಮೇಲೆ next ಯಾವುದಿದೆ, angiosperms are there. Gymnosperms also we are writing the plant body is differentiated into root, stem and leaf. Angiosperms also we are writing the plant body is differentiated into root, stem and leaf. What difference is there? Difference ಏನಿದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ just you have to observe that this is an example what I am showing you. Idu soil surface we can observe that and these are the roots. The roots are there. Now example I am showing you. Now this is about the plant. Idu one plant, right? Now leaves are going to be found in this region. These are considered as leaves, or else these are the leaves what we are saying that, right? The leaves are going to be found in this manner. So like this we can observe that the leaves are going to be found. Now the leaves are there, no doubt that leaves are sessile, stalk is not there. Now I want to explain about, I want to tell you that how the differentiation of root, stem and leaf. Which one is considering it as a root? These are the roots, you know that. And now you can see that root as the next stem region. Where is the stem that is going to be found? Usually we are saying that this is considered as a stem. But now in the pterodophytic plant, gymnospermic plant ಮತ್ತು angiospermic plant ನಲ್ಲಿ whatever the part which is present above the soil, it is considering it as a shoot system or that the stem region. But here, where is the stem? Andre, this is not the stem. Idu stem alla. Now we are going to observe that it is called as a stem. So hence the stem is considered as a rhizome anta karite. Stem is considered as a rhizome means underground stem. Stem elli irutade, soil ಒಳಗಡೆ ಇರುತ್ತದೆ, ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಲ್ಲ. Stem is present, but it is normally present in the underground. Why it is? First time development is there. ಮೊದಲನೇ ಸಲ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತ all the parts are not completely developed. Hence you can see that the stem is present but it is underground. That is what we are saying it as a rhizome. Rhizomatic stem andre it is normally found at the lower part. Andre it is not visible above the ground level. Note estond important idi. Stem is there but it is not visible. Right. This is called as rhizome. Then now we can observe that then what it is andre this is completely leaf. Idu pura leaf idi. This is completely considered as a leaf what we are observing. So now the leaves are considered as an fronds anta karite. Leaves are called as fronds. FRONDS. ಒಂದಕ್ಕೊಂದು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಹತ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತವೆ. Leaves are considering it as a fronds. In the previous class we have discussed. Now young leaf is called as, this is young leaf. Young leaf is called as circinate venation. Young leaf is called as circinate venation. So this is what the important character. You can see that the circinate venation andre young leaf. Idrolage young leaf nodri. Ee stem irodrinda branches it has been observed. Branches it has been occurred from the lower part itself. Idarde branch andre ee kadend bardittu, but it is not like this. But now it has been occurred at the lower part. So that is why ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ನಾವು ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಸ್ಟೆಮ್ ಈಸ್ ರೈಸೋಮ್, ಅಂಡರ್ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಸ್ಟೆಮ್, ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಫ್ರಾಂಡ್ಸ್. ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಫೌಂಡ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಫ್ರಾಂಡ್ಸ್. ಒಂದೊಂದು ಕರೆಕ್ಟಾಗಿ ಬಂಚ್ ಆಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಅನ್ ಫ್ರಾಂಡ್ಸ್. ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಈಸ್ ಯಂಗ್ ಲೀಫ್. Young leaf is called as, idu branch ಇದೆ. Young leaf ಅಂದ್ರೆ branch, you can see that. So young leaf is called as circinate venation. These are the features that what we are going to observe that. So plant body is called as a prothallus, where root, stem, ಇಲ್ಲಿ rhizome ಅಂತ ಬರೀಬಹುದು. And root, stem and leaves are differentiated here. Okay, followed where root, stem is considered as a rhizome and the leaves are called as fronds. Ali leaf nalli eradu barthe. Young leaf is called as circinate venation. This is what we are going to be observed in this region. Right. Next is the underground stem ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು. Now next part we are going to observe that ಇದಾದ ಮೇಲೆ now we are moving toward the next third character. These are vascular presence of xylem and phloem. Again the confusion starts. Xylem and phloem tissues are also present in the gymnosperms and angiosperms. Then what difference is there? ಹೌದಾ, ಜಿಮ್ನೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಮತ್ತು ಎಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ xylem ಮತ್ತು phloem ಇದೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರನೂ xylem and phloem ಇದೆ. ದೆನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಯಾವುದು? ಟೆರಡೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ನಾವು ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂದಾಗ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ದಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ದ xylem ಕನ್ಸಿಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್. xylem ನಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೇನಿರ್ತವೆ? ವಾಟ್ ದ xylem is made up of? Xylem is made up of tracheids, vessels, xylem fibers, xylem parenchyma. Followed ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟಿಶ್ಯೂ ಅಂತ ಆಯ್ತು. Phloem is consisting of sieve tubes, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, phloem fibers, like that you have studied. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನದಂದ್ರೆ xylem and phloem ಬಂದಾಗ now we have to observe that the xylem consisting of tracheids, usually tracheids and vessels. Phloem consisting of sieve tubes, companion cells, sieve tubes and companion cells. ನೋಡಿ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ. CO2s are companion cells ಅಂದರೆ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ pterodophytes. First time we are observing the xylem and phloem. That is why in the xylem only tracheids are present, vessels are absent. Only tracheids are present, vessels are absent. CO2s are present, companion cells are absent in the case of phloem. So like that, ಇದು ಬಹಳ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ. Tracheids are present, vessels are absent. Tracheids ಯಾವ ಥರ ಇರ್ತವೆ? These are the tracheids which are present. You can see that these are the tracheids, and the vessels ಅಂದರೆ normally cylindrical. You can see that these are the vessels. So why these are present ಅಂದರೆ vessels are present in the higher plants. It is because of that enormous amount of the water transportation is supposed to be taking place. That is why vessels are necessary. ಇಲ್ಲಿ smaller plants ಇರ್ತವೆ and almost all they are present in the moist regions ಅಥವಾ shady places. That much water is not supposed to be required. ಅದಕ್ಕಾಗಿ only tracheids are sufficient, vessels are absent. ಹೌದಾ? ಎಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಹೇಳ್ತು ಟ್ರಾಕಿಡ್ಸ್ ಒಂದೇ ಇವೆ, ವೆಸಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಬ್ಸೆಂಟ್, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೋಡ್ಕೋ ಅಂತಂತು. ದೆನ್ ದೇ ಕಮ್ ಟು ನೋ ದಟ್ ಓಕೆ, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ವೈ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಪ್ರಿಮಿಟಿವ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್. ಎಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಜಿಮ್ನೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ಹೈಯರ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ಸ್. ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್. ಫಾಲೋಡ್. ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಟ್ರಾಕಿಯೋಫೈಟ್ಸ್. ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಏನು ಬರೀತಾರೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರಾಕಿಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್, ವೆಸಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಬ್ಸೆಂಟ್. ಒಂದು ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಬೇಕಲ್ಲ, ಎನಿ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ದಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಂದೇ ಇವೆ ಎಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಮತ್ತು ಟೆರಡೋಫೈಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಇಟ್. ಸೊ ದೆನ್ ದ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರಿಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಸ್ ಇವು ಕೂಡ ಎಂಜಿಯೋಸ್ಪರ್ಮ್ ಹೋಗ್ತಿದ್ದು. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ದಿಸ್. ಟ್ರಾಕಿಡ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್, ವೆಸಲ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಬ್ಸೆಂಟ್. ದಟ್ ಮಚ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸಸ್ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಫೋರ್ತ್ ಒನ್. ಸೊ vascular, non-vascular, that what we have studied that. Now we are observing that ಇಲ್ಲಿ earlier we have studied that again gametophytic stage and the sporophytic stage. So in the pterodophytes now we can observe that the alternation of generation takes place. Alternation of generation takes place, right? Andre two life cycles. Already you know that. Once again I don't want to write that the sporophytic and gametophytic. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದು ಡಾಮಿನೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ? Sporophytic plant is dominant. Sporophytic plant is dominant. ಎರಡು ನಡೀತಾವೆ. Alternating phase is going to be found here, but the important part is in this part gametophytic stage is short-lived. Why? Because it needs water for the reproduction or the fusion of the gametes. That is why you irrove moist soil nalli, so that water is not there. Wherever water is there, at that time fusion is going to be taking place. Andra artha enu, so that it is short-lived. Yakandre sporophytic plant does not require water, so it is long-lived. That is why it is considered as a dominant anta karite. Next is sporophytic stage is dominant. Now where the spores are present? Spores are present on the marginal surface of the leaf. Spores are present on the marginal surface of the leaf called sporophyll. ಇದು ಕೂಡ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಇದೆ. Fill ಅಂದ್ರೆ leaf. When the leaves are normally containing the spores called as sporophyll. ಹೌದಾ? Leaves are containing the spores are called as sporophyll ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. ಹೌದಾ? Leaves are normally containing the spores called as sporophyll. ಅಥವಾ leaf bearing spores are called as sporophyll ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. Next, sixth one. ಇಲ್ಲಿ now what we are observing that spores are the reproductive structures. Spores are the reproductive structures. We can see that the spores are present on the marginal surface of the leaf. Which type of plant is there? This plant is normal andre in the bryophyte. What we have studied that gametophytic stage is dominant. Then what we have observed that haploid stage is dominant. Main plant body is haploid anta heliddu. Illi main plant body is diploid. Main plant body is diploid andre complete set of the chromosomes are going to be found here. right? Spores are present on the marginal surface of the leaf called as sporophyll. Next, the spores are of two types, namely homospores and heterospores, or homosporous heterosporous anta kariteve. Hauda? Next, seventh one, the leaf contain similar kind of spores called homospores ಅಥವಾ homospores ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೀವಿ. Example, Nephrolipis. What we have drawn in the earlier, that is the Nephrolipis. And eighth one, the leaf contain different kinds of spores called heterospores. Example, Silaginella and like this. So there are two kinds. How many kinds of spores are there antandre? Two kinds of spores, homosporous, heterosporous. Homosporous andre if the plant which may contain or the leaf contain similar kinds of spores, they are called as normally homosporous. If they contain different kinds of spores, they are called as heterospores. So now we are going to discuss about the spores only. The reproductive phase is. Now we are studying about the different kinds of the spores. This is the plant body that what we have drawn earlier. These are the leaves. We are going to observe that the spores ಯಾವ ಥರ ಇರ್ತವೆ ಅಂದರೆ, now we are going to observe that some of the plants they are showing similar kinds of spores. These are called as normally homosporous. ಈ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತಾವ ಅಂದರೆ, ಆ ಲೀಫ್ ಮಾರ್ಜಿನ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಡಾಟೆಡ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ವಿಸಿಬಲ್ ವೆನ್ ಎವರ್ ದ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾಚೂರ್ಸ್. ಯಾವಾಗ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾಚುರೇಷನ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ, ಲೋವರ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಲೀಫ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್ ದಟ್ ದಿ, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಮಾರ್ಜಿನಲ್ ಸರ್ಫೇಸ್ ದ ಲೋವರ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಲೀಫ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಸಿ ದಟ್ ದ ಡಾಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ವಿಸಿಬಲ್. ದೇ ಆರ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ. The sporangia ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಯಾವಿಟಿ ಆರ್ ದ ಕಪ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್. ಇನ್ಸೈಡ್ ದ ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್. ಆ ಸ್ಪೊರಾಂಜಿಯಾ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತವೆ. ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ದ ರಿಪ್ರೊಡಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್, ಆಸ್ ಯು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನೋ ದಟ್. ಇವು ಯಾವ ತರ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಇರ್ತವೆ? ಡಿಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಮ್ಯಾಚುರೇಷನ್ ಮಿಯೋಸಿಸ್ ಆಕರ್ಸ್, ದೆನ್ ಇಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ಹೆಪ್ಲಾಯ್ಡ್, ರೈಟ್? ದೀಸ್ ಹೋಮೋಸ್ಪೋರಸ್ ಆಯ್ತು. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಅನದರ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ, ಒನ್ ಮೋರ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್. So this you can observe that the spores are normally found in the form of heterosporous. Heterosporous is one small spore in on the large spore, like this. Homosporous and the heterosporous, like the difference you can see that. So one large spore in on the small spore anta kariyutteve. So here large spores called macrospores. And smaller spores are called as microspores. Idu large spores, idu small spores. Small spores are called as microspores. As you already studied in the previous class, that is a gymnospermic character nodteno, microsporophyll. ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್? ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಬೇರಿಂಗ್ ಲೀಫ್. ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಲೀಫ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್. ಸೊ you know about that microsporophyll is called as male gamete, megasporophyll is called as female gamete. But now here I am not telling you about the male and female. ಅದು ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಓನ್ಲಿ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಎದಕ್ಕಂತೇವು, ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್. ರೈಟ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟೂ ಕೈಂಡ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಸ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಫೌಂಡ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟೆರಡೋಫೈಟಿಕ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಸಿಲಾಜಿನೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದಿದೆ, and even we can observe that the Nephrolipis also we are going to be found. Next, so these are the spores. ಈಗ ಏನೇನು ನೋಡಿದೆವು ನಾವು, ಒಂದು sporophyll. Next we have studied that different kinds of spores. Next we have studied that microspores and macrospores, ಅಥವಾ microspores and megaspores we have observed. So important part is, important andre now the reproduction now it is to be taking place. Now microspores whenever they fall on the megaspore, then automatically zygote formation takes place in the megaspore itself. So what is the indication of this? We can observe that the ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಇಂಡಿಕೇಶನ್ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂದರೆ, megaspores are normally retaining on the leaf. Megaspores are normally retaining on the leaf. ಅಂದರೆ megaspores ಹೋಗಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, they remain on the leaf surface itself. Microspores only liberate. That is why in future under gymnospermic plant we are saying that microspores are generally considered as a male gamete, megaspores are considered as a female gamete. On what basis? Megaspores are retaining on the leaf. So what we have observed that the fertilization takes place. Fertilization ಆದಮೇಲೆ zygote formation occurs in the megaspore. In general what we are observing that where the zygote formation takes place in the female body. That is why it is considering it as an female gamete anta karatva, female gametophyte anta karatva. That is normally megasporophyll. So in this way, like that, this plant Selaginella salvinia anta eradu plant bartava. These are the plants which are showing seed bearing. Andre enu evolutionary character. It is the next step of evolution. Next step of evolution andre in the case of gymnosperm we are studying that microsporophyll, megasporophyll. Gymnosperm ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಕಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್ ಮತ್ತು ಮೆಗಾಸ್ಪೋರೋಫಿಲ್. ಆದರೆ ಹಿಯರ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ದ microsporophyll is there, megasporophyll is there, but male and female we cannot tell. Agre, on what basis we are saying that the female gamete? Because zygote taking place in the megaspores itself. Megaspores are retaining on the leaf surface, they are not liberating. So that is why fertilization is going to be taking place. Fertilization illagtade, and normally what will happen? Again the spores are fall on the ground, that is the haploid spores. Then the gametophytic plant is produced. A gametophytic plant produces admele next we can see that the gametophytic plant is short lived. Yakandre water is essential for the fusion of gametes. Then immediately again fusion of gamete takes place, antheridia and archegonia. Then again sporophytic plant is produced. Followed. So now here main dominant plant is sporophytic. Yake land irutte. How much time we are normally staying in water, that is important. Now we can have fishes are there and the mammals are there. Now example human being you can see that ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ನಾವು ಮುಳುಗ್ತೇವೆ ನೀರಿನಲ್ಲಿ, we are sinking inside. ಎಷ್ಟು ಟೈಮ್ ಹಿಡಿತೇವೆ? 2 minutes or 1 minute. Again we come up. ಯಾಕೆ? Here this condition or the environmental condition is not suitable for us. ನಮ್ದಲ್ಲಿ ಬರಬೇಕು. Whether fishes, you can see that fish ತಗೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಹಾಕಿದ್ವಿ, how much time they can survive? We can see that within few minutes they die. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ that condition is not favorable for that. Like that here also dominant phase ಅಂದರೆ sporophytic. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ it is present growing on the land, and gametophytic plant requires water. ನೀರು ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ, that is why it is normally short lived ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. So again sporophytic plant is produced. So two kinds of plants irodrinda. So here also we can see that in the fusion of the spores which may take place, then the gametophytic plant is produced. This is the Nephrolipis. Idu example we are observing that the Nephrolipis. This is the Selaginella. Andre two kinds of spores are going to be found. Selaginella nalli two kinds of spores are there. They are considering it as an heterosporous in condition anta karite. So ಅಂದರೆ ಸೀಡ್ ಬಿಯರಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್. ಸೀಡ್ ಬಿಯರಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಸಿಲಾಜಿನೆಲ್ಲಾ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸೆಲ್ವಿನಿಯಾ. ಸಿಲಾಜಿನೆಲ್ಲಾ ಸೆಲ್ವಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಸೀಡ್ ಬೇರಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ ಯಾಕಂತೇವೆ ಅಂದರೆ ದೇರ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಸೀಡ್ಸ್ ಆಕರ್, ಸೀಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇರ್ತದೆ. ಆಫ್ಟರ್ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ದೇ ನಾರ್ಮಲಿ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಅಪ್ ಅಥವಾ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಬೀಳುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಇನ್ ದಿಸ್ ವೇ ಸೀಡ್ ಬೇರಿಂಗ್ ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ ಈಸ್ ನಾರ್ಮಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸಿಬಿಟಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಕೇಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಸಿಲಾಜಿನೆಲ್ಲಾ. ಸೊ ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್, ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್, ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್, ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್, ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ಡ್ ಆಸ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋಫಿಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ರೋಫಿಲ್. ಈಗ ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರ್ತಾವ ಅಂದರೆ ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಲೀವ್ ಅಥವಾ ಸ್ಮಾಲರ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ವೇರ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಸಿಲಾಜಿನೆಲ್ಲಾ. ಇದಕ್ಕೇನಂತೀವಿ ನಾವು ಮೈಕ್ರೋಫಿಲ್. ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಗಿವಿಂಗ್ ನೌ. ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್ ವೇರ್ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್, ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಲೀವ್ಸ್, these are the larger leaves. Larger leaves, Nephrolipis. Nephrolipis. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗ್ತಾವೆ ಅಂದರೆ Nephrolipis we can observe that this is what we are saying it as an usually macrophil. Macrophil. Sporophyll, like that. So in this way the spores what we have studied in this part, Pterodophyte ಅನ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಳ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಇವೆ. ಆದರೆ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಸ್ಪೋರ್ ಬೇರಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಈಸ್ Xylem and Phloem tissues are found, but all the tissues or the cells are not found properly ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. That is why I have written the characters here also. And even we can observe that the root, stem and leaf also it is going to be found. Stem is rhizome ಅಥವಾ rhizomatic, that what we are observing. Stem is rhizomatic. Okay. So in this way whatever we have studied so far, alternation of generation, spores are of different kinds, the heterosporous and the homosporous, that I have written clearly. This much only characters you have to study. And now illi larger spores ಅಥವಾ larger leaves, Nephrolipis example I have given, macrophylla ಅಥವಾ macrophyls ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ಬರೀಬಹುದು. macrophyll. Smaller leaves, Silaginella, microphyll. Like this we are going to be observe. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟಡಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ ನಾವು. Which plant is exhibiting the seed bearing habit? Silaginella. Why? Because different kinds of spores are going to be found in this region and the megaspore is retaining on the leaf. Okay, this what we have studied today, and tomorrow or the next video we are studying about the classification of this. Classes are there. After writing the classes immediately I will repeat few minutes for this, like bryophytes what we have discussed. Then I will write about the 4 classes. ಏನಲ್ಲ 4 ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇವೆ, ಅದರದ್ದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲನೇಷನ್ ಬೇಡ, ಓನ್ಲಿ 4 ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ವಿತ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, and then we are going to start the gymnosperms. Right? Okay. Have a nice day.